Hello, I'm Peter DeBruge, Chief Film Critic for Variety Magazine, Animation Nut. We just finished here in Los Angeles the Animationist Film Festival, where the movie you're about to see won the special mention from the jury. It's been cleaning up everywhere. It won the big prize at AMC. It was the first animated film to win the BFI London Film Festival. You're about to see a masterpiece. No big deal, no big deal. Okay, and we're going to bring out the master and a legendary actor who's lives here in Los Angeles and is joining us for a live Q&A today. I'm gonna bring out Jackie Weaver, who voices Pinky in the film, and director Adam Elliott. And because we're doing this before the movie, we're gonna be careful not to give too much away, but we wanna give you guys some context. Welcome both of you. Great. Let's see. Because we have you in LA, Jackie, I'm gonna start. I learned the other day you've done a few animated features. You're in Maya and the Bee and Back to the Outback, but you have been doing voice work from the very beginning of your career, right? Will you give us just a little, insight into some of the early times you were not being visible on screen, but lending? I love your voice, and your voice was I guess it was in advertisements, right?
Yeah, in the early days of my career in the 1960s, I did a lot of character voices, especially for commercials. And in Australia, I was Snap, Crackle and Pop for rice. We call them rice bubbles, what you call rice crinkles here. And the magic sound of breakfast is Kellogg's rice bubbles. Anyway, I had to do a different voice for Snap, Crackle and Pop, yeah. And I was a sun-kissed Sultana Bran for Sultana Bran, which you call Raisin Bran. Well, we do. I've lived here 15 years now. I'm a Californian, really.
Adam, Oscar winner for Harvey Crumpet. How many of you have seen Harvey Crumpet, the animated short? Of course, you also directed Mary and Max, which I'm glad we've got your fan club here.
Yeah, my family are obviously here.
It takes an enormous amount of work and time to make an animated feature. Therefore, you want to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. Tell us what was the kernel? Was it a character? Was it a scene, an idea of tonight's movie?
Well, there was a couple of things. My father passed away 8 years ago and left behind 3 sheds full of things: farm machinery, tools, receipts going back to the 60s. And I was angry with him because we had to sort through it and chuck it all out, and I became fascinated with why, as human beings, do we collect things. And we obviously live in a consumer society. We all have stuff that we don't need, but when does it become extreme, and when does it become a problem? So I spoke to a lot of psychologists and read a lot of literature on extreme hoarding, and the more I researched, the more I discovered that extreme hoarders have suffered a degree of trauma and loss, and the hoarding becomes a coping mechanism to deal with all that pain. So it was that sort of idea, but also I'd always wanted to make a film about a friend of mine who was born with a severe cleft palate, and as a child had a very traumatic childhood, was bullied and teased, but she grew up to be this very flamboyant extrovert, and I was fascinated with how she managed to transform herself. So these two sort of vague ideas, and I just started writing, and 3 years later we have this.
I'm glad you're talking about writing, because for me that is the thing that really sets your work above. I mean, I just think it's such, not only is there such creativity and humor, but it's really about, if you're going to put all this work down, you really want to get that right from the beginning. Would you talk at all about just, how about your voice, about your sense of humor. I mean, I think when we've talked in the past, you've kind of indicated that the darkness, the kind of dark humor is reflective of kind of like a regional sense of humor, but are all Australians from your neck of the woods kind of like as twisted?
I think so, Jackie. I mean,
Yeah.
we love dark comedy. We love dry humour in Australia. We love self-deprecation. We love, making fun of each other, and I love all types of comedy. I love sarcasm and satire and parody, and I have very detailed notebooks going back many decades. And when I go to write, I go through them and I find my ingredients. So I knew I wanted a woman tap dancing semi-naked in a schnitzel bar, which you haven't seen the film yet. That's Jackie. And guinea pigs mating. There's a lot of guinea pig sex in what you're about to see. So it's finding all these ingredients. As long as they make me laugh. That I make my films for very selfish reasons. I'm really just trying to entertain my mother and myself and my partner and my producer. So. They are a mix of comedy, tragedy, humour, pathos, and I'm equally interested in the darker side of life. I'm interested in philosophy. I love poetry. I'm an amateur poet. So my films are very dense. I cram them full of everything, and what I'm trying to do with each film is exhaust you, and hopefully this will exhaust you. And if you're not an emotional wreck by the end of this film, then I have failed as a writer and director.
Tell me about working, casting your films and working with actors. I mean, you have gotten a chance to work with some of Australia's great, not limited to Australia, but you naturally started there. Jackie, Australian by birth, you tracked her down halfway across the world with Toni Collette, Geoffrey Rush. How do you choose the right fit? And once you're working with them, is everything in the screenplay set, or is there some kind of development that happens with those voices?
Well, I watch a lot of films with my eyes shut, and for Jackie's character Pinky, I rewatched a lot of Jackie's films, closed my eyes, and it just made sense. And it is very intuitive. And animation, sometimes you don't get it right. You might have a fantastic actor and a fantastic animation, and sometimes they just don't marry. And I think for me, the one of the actors I really enjoyed working with was the late Philip Seymour Hoffman, because like Jackie, he just switched it on. And I mean, not that it's that easy, but there's a lot of thought going into the performances. But Philip Seymour Hoffman just had that, just watching him perform and inhabit this plasticine blob, because this is a thing, we have to get you to believe these plasticine blobs have a soul and a heartbeat, and the suspension of disbelief is absolute. And so it is very tricky to get the right actor for the right character. So I spent a lot of time listening with my eyes shut.
Jackie, from your side of that experience, is it something where, because the film takes years to do, you are continuing to work for that, or do they record everything early on? Just what was the experience like?
Well, I got the offer and the script at the same time, and when they said it was Adam, who back home in Australia, he is a legend, and without even reading the script, I said, yes, yes, yes. And then I read the script and I thought it was just beautiful. And it can be lonely being in, because you do all your dialogue by yourself in a studio. And I was thousands of miles away from the director in a studio here in LA, and I'm used to working with other actors, like I love other actors, and so there's a bit of it's a bit strange. It's ultimately quite satisfying, and it's lovely when they show you a sketch, or in Adam's case, a little figure, and that's who you are. Wait till you see Pinky. That's why I'm in pink. She's just amazing.
You seem very committed to the character today. I'm getting kind of like a Dolly Parton thing from you.
It's a bit cheesy being in pink. I've even got pink hair.
She even dyed her hair a little bit.
I love it. Yes.
No, I love the character. My husband and I saw the film a couple of days ago, and we laughed like drains, as we say in Australia, and we sobbed. It's the gamut of emotional experience. Which I think is the best stories. Make you laugh, make you cry, make you think a lot.
That's certainly true of the film. In Harvey Crumpet, you use the word peculiarities to kind of describe, I think, what now we see as a common theme in all of your movies. You seem to gravitate towards, people who are different, and to really embrace, what might be characterized as imperfections or oddities. Just tell me a little bit about your sensibility, and now that we have seen kind of over multiple films, how Gracie and the cast here kind of fit into your universe.
Well, look, I love eccentricity. I love reading about characters who've led very colourful lives, but I'm also interested in the mundane. We had a wonderful actor, performer, writer, Barry Humphries in Australia, who you might know as Dame Edna from a long time back. And I used to love Barry's writing because he was able to have that duality of comedy, tragedy. He had a wonderful character too, Sandy Stone, and his objective was to get on stage and give monologues and bore the audience to death, he said. But they were incredibly engaging. So I'm equally as interested in idiosyncrasies and what makes us human, but I'm also interested in the bland as well, and dreariness, and which is why this film is very brown. The investors were very nervous when I said I wanted to make a brown film. And what you're about to see has no blue or green, which is, I don't like blue. My mother used to dress me up in blue as a child, and so I have a problem with blue. So I have very detailed notebooks which are full of things I'd love to put in a film, and I'm a human sponge. I just love observing people and collecting anecdotes and things that make me laugh, but also things that are poignant and philosophical.
Let's talk a little bit about the style of the film. For one, I think stop motion is enjoying kind of a resurgence or a surgence. Right now we're seeing a lot of different variations on it. Yours is really true to the medium in that it's not a hybrid. There's not kind of embellishments with computer effects. Tell us why it's important to you to do it the difficult way, in a way.
Well, look, there's so much CGI. We're drowning in CGI, and some of my best friends are CGI animators, but I've always loved traditional stop motion animation, and what you're about to see has no CGI in it at all. So the fire is yellow cellophane, the cigarette smoke is cotton wool. I won't tell you what the tears are, that might ruin it, but
you have to tell us.
Do I? Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, look, all the water in the film you're about to see is sexual lubricant. There's none left in Australia at the moment. We used it all up. It's a very dry country. So everything you see is real, stuff that you could hold in your hand. And I think too, with AI on the horizon, or AI's here to stay, I think there's a greater appreciation of art forms that are handmade. It's the same reason why during lockdown everyone took up knitting and bread making, and art supply stores were booming, because we're all trapped away and we were forced to go back to things that were handmade. So I think the pendulum is sort of swinging back to the handcrafts, artisans, artists. I think it's just where we are currently. And of course, Guillermo del Toro, Wes Anderson, Tim Burton, Henry Selick are all making stop motion films, and that really makes my life easier as an independent stop motion director. It just, it's interesting, when I left film school, the College of the Arts in 1996, I was told I was pursuing a dying art form and stop motion would be dead. And then the laser disc came out and everyone said, that's the end of cinema. Well, who won that battle? You know, here we are in a cinema having a communal experience. And, you know, this film was also made for the big screen. The music is all fully composed from scratch. Everything you're about to see and hear never existed 8 years ago. So even the music is, except for the song Alouette. I won't give that away, but you know, I love creating things from scratch and creating art and artworks that are original, because that's what I want to see when I go to the cinema. I want to see originality.
Jackie, it sounds like you did your work here from a sound booth in California, but with the rest of the cast, do they get to come and see the studio? Did you ever get to visit? Or are they kind of kept in a different corner of the process?
Well, I would have loved to have gone in the studio and looked at all the workings, but of course, thousands of miles away. Did any of the other cast come in?
Sarah came in and Eric Banner came in. Nick Cave didn't. Nick Cave has a cameo. I won't give it away. But Nick was in London. So, and that's the beauty now. We can record the actors anywhere in the world, and it's a wonderful way of getting all these diverse actors all in the one film without having to fly everyone all around the world. And actually, Nick Cave, I should just mention, when we offered him the role, he said to me, Adam, what sort of voice do you want me to do? And I said, no, I don't want you to do a voice. I just want you to be Nick Cave. He said, how Nick Cave do you want me to be? I said, 10% more Nick Cave than Nick Cave. So yes, so look out for him.
Jackie, how did you two sort of find Pinky's voice? Was that all your kind of ideas, or?
Well, I originally was expecting to do some elaborate character voice, because I do a lot of those. I hardly ever get to be Australian. I'm nearly always American. But when I said to Adam, what kind of voice would you like? He said, I just want your voice. And so it's pretty much just my boring old voice. Though my husband did say, you've got a bit of sibilance there that you don't usually have. Maybe when I'm playing a crazy old eccentric, a sibilance pops in by mistake.
It was a lovely sibilance.
Do any of the actors have the opportunity to work together, or is it all kind of recorded separately?
Sometimes in animation, yeah, we can get them in the same room, and it is good for the actors so they can bounce off each other. With Sarah Snook, we certainly got her to listen to some of the other voices. Actually, with Sarah, you know, because it's a memoir, I won't give it away, but she talks to a snail a lot in the film. And the way we did that was we actually brought in one of the clay snails and sat it down next to Sarah. And I said, just talk to the snail, and we recorded her. And you just get this lovely intimacy and authenticity, because that's what I'm also striving for is believable characters that just happen to be blobs of clay. And that's why I draw from real life, because I'm just not one of those writers who can invent characters from thin air. I'm always, as I say, I'm always stealing from the people around me. So look out, you could be next.
I don't want to steal anything from the impact of the film, but why snails? Do you want to tell us?
Yeah, well, originally the screenplay was Memoir of a Ladybird, and then that film Ladybird came out, and I thought, well, there we go, can't do that. But also Ladybirds was getting a bit twee and cutesy and saccharine, and so I was looking for an animal was a better metaphor. Again, I won't give it away, but there's something about snails that really sum up Grace's psychological state. But also I love the swirls. Farinette, I can never say a Farinacci swirl. Yes, that's it. Is such a beautiful, symbol. All through nature it occurs, that swirl. And I love the symbolism of the swirl, that life goes full circle. And again, without giving away the film, Grace's life sort of does go round in circles. And also too, snails can only move forwards, they can't reverse. So there's a little hint to what you're about to see.
Speaking of what we're about to see, let's give them some things to look for. Is there anything worth pointing out, kind of as we're doing this conversation before?
There's one thing that's quite macabre. I don't know if I've told you this, Jackie, but one of the animators, my cousin Donna, actually, who's one of the 7 animators in the film, she was making a beautiful little prop with a very sharp scalpel blade, and she accidentally cut off the tip of her finger, and it landed on the ground and blood spurted everywhere. So we fixed her up, and off she went home and to the doctor, and we sorted all that out. But we could never find the fingertip until 3 days later. There it was. Someone said, I found it. So it was all dried up and manky by then. So we put it in a little tiny jar and put a cork in it, and it now appears throughout the film. So it's actually in the opening shot. So it's very briefly on screen in the opening shot. So look out for it. But yeah, it's. I don't think Pixar or Disney would ever do something like that. So, but yeah, so there's a fingertip.
Just speaking of kind of your sensibility, even the opening shot is a great example. It's like the opening shot is a junkyard. This is a scene I can give away, I feel like, safely. It's like your opening shot is a junkyard with all the kind of like credits superimposed on different things, and I'm just thinking it takes so much work to do this, to craft a stop motion toilet lid and all these kind of things. But you seem to have an affection for maybe the things that go overlooked. Is that fair?
Yeah, look, the opening montage is actually I stole from Jean-Pierre Jeunet, who's become a good friend over the years. He's responsible for all those beautiful films, Delicatessen, Amélie. And actually, I asked him to be one of the voices in the film, and he said, no. But what about my friend Dominique Pignon, who plays Gilbert and Grace's father? He's one of the leads in Delicatessen. You'll recognise his voice. But yeah, I really wanted that opening shot to be claustrophobic, because the film, again, I don't want to give it away, but the film is about somebody who has a lot of stuff. And there are little clues all in that opening montage. It's the longest shot in the film. It's the longest shot I've ever done in 28 years. It's my Scorsese Goodfellas moment. There's not a single cut in it. And the only thing that moves is a toilet seat. Yeah, very indulgent, very expensive. It took us a month to do that one shot.
And I'm curious, you describe the movie as brown, which is fair. I think of it almost kind of monochromatic. It's maybe I'm carrying over from the earlier films, which are very black and white, but that sort of connects to other artists that your sensibility reminds me of. I'm thinking Edward Gorey or Charles Addams, but who are the artists or writers that inspire you?
Well, actually, Edward Gorey is certainly an artist, illustrator, author that I've loved. I love the darkness in his work. I'm actually inspired by a lot of surrealist animators. I love, Barry Humphries was a Dadaist. I actually don't watch a lot of animation. I love documentaries too. So Errol Morris, Werner Herzog. There's all sorts of different artists who I admire. Particularly, the one animator I do love is a Czech Republic animator, Jan Švankmajer, and he made a wonderful interpretation of Alice in Wonderland called Alice. Very dark film. I really am inspired by a lot of different things, but I try and pursue my own style and aesthetic, and it's one thing to have a homage to another artist, but I find to a lot of younger artists too, stuff is starting to get a bit derivative, and of course it's really hard to be original and come up with your own look and style, but it is worth it, because I've spent years trying to get, even my eyeballs, I've spent years trying to get eyeballs to look differently to other people's eyeballs, so mine look like eggs. But yeah, I think, Aardman have a very distinct style, Pixar have a very distinct style, and it does take time. But yeah, I can't remember your question, Peanut, but yeah.
No, that's perfect. And maybe just to sort of wrap us up, a common thread in all of these films is that they are about children, young characters, but it will become very quickly apparent that it's not necessarily a children's film. tell us just about the advantages of approaching childhood from, a more mature sensibility where you can be a little bit more honest, I guess.
Yeah, well, look, I've always, love the idea that animation is, well, it's not an idea, but animation is not a genre. It's a medium and it's a vehicle, and it's a great vehicle for telling any story you want to tell. And that's why I love animation, is I get to play God, I get to have a lot of creative control, a lot of creative freedom. And it means there are no boundaries. You know, as long as you're not being, offensive. I like to be thought-provoking and challenging, and it means I can take risks that the big studios can't do, because they have to make their money back. My budgets are so low that doesn't really matter if we don't make a profit. It just, for me, is and I'm lucky too. We get notes from the investors, but I don't get told you have to change the ending. You have to get rid of that sequence because it'll offend somebody. So that's what I love about being independent, is that it is the freedom I have as an artist. And I do try and push myself with every story. And I think it's the job of a writer and a director to continually push the boundaries, because I think when an art form becomes stale, it does die. And I don't want stop motion to die. I want other people to do what I'm doing as well, and deal with philosophy, deal with existential questions, deal with trauma and things that are hard to swallow, So, and it's good, because I think animation is evolving. I think there are artists out there who really want to advance the art form and push it in new directions.
All right, Jackie, you just saw this movie for the first time last week. Did you have a favorite moment, scene, as we set it up for the audience to discover? A line you want to share with us?
That opening shot you were talking about with the credits, we were just going, wow. So from the moment it started, my husband and I were hooked, totally hooked. And it's there's laughs where you don't expect it. I thought you were going to mention how a lot of my character's profanity was quite extreme at places, but you had to let go of some of that because of your classification.
We had to get rid of the C word.
Yeah.
But boy, did you do a great job.
Thank you. It's a very Australian word. I do tell all my friends, it's not for kids. It's not for children. My youngest grandchild is now 14. It's fine for her, but younger than 12, I don't think so.
No, we don't want to traumatise anyone. But yeah, and actually, Jackie, there's a moment to look out for where Jackie is in a helicopter making love to a very famous person.
You'll know it when you see it. All right, with that to look forward to, thank you both for joining us today. Enjoy the movie, a very salty masterpiece from Adam Elliott, Jackie Weaver. Thank you for being with us. All right.
Thank you. Enjoy the film.